So to quickly revamp what we have discussed yesterday, I'm going to this blog again. Okay. And in Cloud Essentials yesterday, we have tried to understand, okay, what is scaling, and we have tried to understand three interesting terms: availability, fault tolerance, elasticity. And then we have tried to understand what a virtualization is. What a virtualization is. All right. Yeah. Basically, today, now what we would try to do is we would try to understand, okay, if you look at the things which we have been doing for the last couple of days, do you think that we can do the same thing in our physical data centers? Do you think it is possible? Okay. So, for example, elasticity. What was elasticity? Increasing the number of machines which you have and decreasing number of machines when you don't have load. Okay, that is something which we call as scale up and scale down. Okay, in our organizations, doing all of this will be slightly difficult in nature because we might have a limited hardware. We might have a limited hardware. Now, how are we going to resolve this? How are we going to resolve this whole idea? And remember, a couple of days ago, I think I've started my discussion by saying that, okay, so generally it is much like how you charge your electric appliance. If you want to switch on, or if your battery is running out of your mobile, you plug it into your socket and then you get the electricity. So that means electricity is given to you as a service. So the whole idea is, now can I get my needs, okay, for running my applications as a service? That is a basic thought process. Just like how we are getting electricity to our homes, you plug in into the socket, you use it for whatever you have used, you will pay for it. So can we apply this kind of a model for our computing needs? So this is exactly right where the concept of cloud has came into play. Okay. So let me open my classroom notes. Okay. So observations. Okay. Implementing sorry man for this pop-ups. Yeah. Implementing availability, right? Fault tolerance and elasticity, okay, in our local data centers, okay, data centers with limited budgets or resources is difficult, okay, right, is difficult to implement. I'm not saying it is impossible, it is difficult to implement. Okay, so there exists a need where you get, okay, your infrastructural needs or your application needs delivered as a service, okay, right, analogous to, right, or similar to electricity or any other service which you are getting, water connection, whatever you get from the federal governments. Okay. Now, this is exactly where an interesting term comes into play. Okay. So, in a generic way, what is the whole idea of a cloud? The whole idea of a cloud is you need not worry about, okay, stuff. Okay, let me put it in this way. Right, couple of years ago or 3 years ago, whenever we had to basically preserve our data or move our data, what we used to do is we used to purchase USB drives or pen drives. Now, if you see, we are not doing that. We are either using Google storage or we are using Microsoft's OneDrive, right? So our need of USB drive is eliminated by a service, right, with service like Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. Yeah. So now we want the exact flexibility for our applications so that we need not run huge servers in our offices. Okay. I'll not say huge servers in our offices. We need not worry about huge services, right? Whether they run in your office or a different office or is altogether a different model. Is altogether a different model. So let us basically get started with this stuff. Okay, right. Now, cloud delivery models. Okay, how can a cloud be delivered, right? So before we basically define this delivery, we have to understand two important terms. Okay, I'll come to the terms as and when they come, rather than defining all the terms and then doing the stuff. Okay, right. So let us define these interesting terms. Right. So the first term is called as cloud provider. Okay. So cloud provider is an organization that provides cloud-based, okay, IT resources. Okay. So if I have to give examples over here, okay, Amazon is a cloud provider. Okay, Microsoft is a cloud provider, cloud services provider. Right? Am I clear on this? And Google is a Microsoft or Google is a cloud provider because they provide you some cloud-based services. Even Apple is a cloud provider because they give you iCloud and they give you some amount of storage and all that stuff. Okay, and then there is one more thing which is cloud consumer. Okay, is an organization, okay, that has, okay, a formal contract. Formal contract would be as simple as account creation, right, or arrangement with cloud provider, okay, to use IT resources provided. He might use all or he might use few of them. Okay. Now here we have two important terms. One is cloud provider. Cloud provider is an organization who is providing cloud services, right? And cloud consumer. This is an organization who is consuming the cloud, basically the IT resources that are basically provided by cloud consumers. Okay, right. So fine. Now let us go back to our cloud delivery models. Okay, so we'll be defining everything as and when they come. Okay, rather than defining all the terms and then getting into the stuff that would make it difficult for you. In cloud, okay, to deliver, right, the cloud based, okay, services to the cloud consumers, there are three popular models. Everyone is aware of it. You might have heard it already. One is called as infrastructure as a service. Okay, IaaS. And then comes platform as a service, which is also called as PaaS. And then comes software as a service, which is also written as SaaS. Okay, right. There are many other specialized terms that you would see, something like database as a service, something like backend as a service, something like integrations as a service. You will get many other things, but these are the basic delivery models which are very, very popular and which are very widely used. Okay, right. Now, cloud provider. So, infrastructure. So, what would the cloud provider's infrastructure sound like? Okay, so cloud provider's infrastructure, right, will have huge, or not, let me not write huge, let me basically say data centers with lot of servers. Now, let me try to denote that pictorially. Okay, so data center, let me see if I can find an image. Yes, so I was saying this huge pile of servers which you are trying to see. Okay, so every data center will be a very huge building generally with hell lot of servers in that, right? And then generally they are arranged in this way. Okay, so this I'll not be putting in the image. Try to understand this. Okay, so in your data centers or even in your offices data centers, the data will be organized or the servers will be organized into something called as racks first. So on the top of the rack, you have some kind of a control unit. Okay, so this control unit, okay, gets its own power supply, its own network. Okay, and this power supply and this network which it got will be distributed to all the servers. So this rack server will have lot of servers. Okay, these servers are generally called as blade servers, right? So I think yesterday's notes, I have used a server. Okay, a blade server looks something like this. Because it is optimized in its size to fit this racks. Okay, so we'll have lot of blade servers in the racks. Okay, now what is the point of failure over here? So your individual server might go wrong, your power supply, okay, your power supply to the rack might go down. Understand one thing, these power supplies are parallel connections from the electricity unit. The same thing for network, right? So now we have many racks in your data center. So for example, you'll have some more, we'll have some more, we'll have some more. So that is exactly what is shown in this image. If you are seeing this, these are all racks, and on the top of the rack you basically are seeing some wires come into directly over here. So each rack will have its own power supply, and each rack will get its own network. Okay, and that network which it gets, it will basically send it to all the other servers, right? So generally that is called as we have two units over here. One, we have something called as stars, top of the rack switch. Okay, you need not know all of this, but I'm trying to tell it in any way. And then you would have a power unit over here. So every rack server will have top of the rack switch, and it will have a power unit. Okay. Now forget about internet connections. We will have a lot of network connections. Okay, how internet is organized is a different story altogether. So all of these servers, this is how they are organized. This is how they are organized. Okay, so here we need to understand, again, as I said, I'll be speaking about the things as and when the terms come into play. Okay, right. So we have to speak about single tenant and multi-tenant models. Okay, what is single tenant and what is dedicated? Okay, let me not call it what is multi-tenant and what is dedicated. Let us try to understand those interesting things. Okay, right. Okay, so now whenever any data center has, what does a data center has? Data center has lot of servers. Now let us assume that from the cloud, okay, lot of data centers, lot of servers, or lot of racks. Can I use this word racks now? Okay, okay, which in turn have lot of servers. Providers use these servers, okay, to provide IT resources, IT resources to the consumers. Right. Now let me draw a very simple image. Right. Now consider this to be a cloud environment, and consider these are two organizations. So cloud consumer A, and then we have cloud consumer B. Okay, and then what you want to use from the cloud is, let us assume that you want to use a data center, or you want to use a database. You want to use a database. Now what has happened is, okay, we will have, okay, let me use a database icon. Okay, correct. Let me put it in this. This is the physical storage, or let us not even think of data. Let us think of something like your Google Drive itself. This is a physical storage device. So we have a physical storage device. All right. Now I have one more physical storage device. Okay. But in cloud, they will not directly give you an access to the physical storage device. So what they try to do is, they try to create something called as service. Okay. So service is whatever cloud is offering to you. Now, when a cloud consumer wants to use the storage, what he does is he accesses via this service, and this service internally accesses this physical storage. Now the same story happens for consumer B as well. So here we have a service, okay, and whenever cloud consumer wants to accept, he basically requests this service, and this service is basically giving it. Now we have two consumers, and two consumers are given access to the storage on two physical storage devices. Yes or no? Do we understand this? I want to give something like Google Drive to two accounts. Now what I'm trying to do is I give that account by giving an access to two physical storage devices in the means of services. Okay, what will happen when the server goes down, we'll worry about it later, Pranit, but first let us try to understand this concept. Okay, now you want to give a storage to the consumer, and to give that, what you have done is you have created two physical devices, and then on the two physical devices you have given an access to your cloud consumers. Is this understood? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this is one model, and this model is something which we call it as single tenant. What is single tenant? For your physical device, there is only one customer, one consumer. That is what is single tenant. Okay. So let me basically use this. Save this. Okay. So if a hardware resource is not shared across multiple consumers, that is generally considered to be a single tenant. That's what it is. Okay. Right. And then what could be a multi-tenant stuff? Multi-tenant would be as simple as, okay, right, you might not need, so you might have a service, okay, and whenever a consumer asks for a storage, okay, you are not using a new physical storage, but you are sharing the same physical storage. But remember, there is a strict permission boundary. There will not be any conflict of the data. For example, consumer A will never be able to see the data of consumer B. In the same way, consumer B will not be able to see the data of consumer A. So in this case, what is happening? We have one physical device which is shared by multiple customers. This is generally called as multi-tenant. This is called as multi-tenant. Generally, in most of the clouds, the cheaper model, or the model which many of the times which we use, is multi-tenant, which is multi-tenant. Okay, so fine. Cloud providers, okay, provide the services, okay, in two possible, okay, models. One is single tenant. This is also called as dedicated, right? And then multi-tenant, right? So I'm sure that the images are 12 and 13. Okay. Review /images/ cloud 12.png and cloud 13.png. Am I clear on this? So what is the difference between single tenancy and multi-tenancy now? Whenever, okay, on the physical side, that means that let us assume that if you want to create a virtual machine, if virtual machine from your account is created in this server, okay, and my virtual machine is also created, okay, my virtual machine is also created on this physical server, okay. So you and me are basically sharing the hardwares. You and me are basically sharing the hardware, okay. But we have our own strict boundaries. We have our own strict boundaries, okay. But we are sharing the hardware. So that's where this kind of model is also called as multi-tenant model. But there are some cloud providers who give you dedicated or single tenant environments. You might tell that, okay, I need 3 servers to be dedicated for my usage. These 3 are for me. Don't give an access to these 3 servers to any other customers. Okay. I'll be using all these 3 servers for my own purpose. That is another model. These are all models. There is nothing right or wrong about it. These are all choices. Will there be any storage issue while sharing a single storage by multiple cloud consumers? No, there will not be an issue. Okay, that is what is happening in your Google Cloud now. Okay, so Google Cloud will not create a 15 GB disk for every customer that comes into Google, right? So there will not be any issues. Okay, am I clear on this now? So do we understand single tenancy and multi-tenancy? Right. Now, multi-tenant is generally cheaper because, right, cloud providers can effectively use their hardwares. This is the basic understanding. Okay, if you go for single tenancy, you will be paying more. If you go for multi-tenancy, you will be basically paying less. Any cloud account which you are working on is generally a multi-tenant. Let it be AWS or let it be Azure. If you want it to be single tenant, you have to give them special instructions. By default, whenever you are working AWS on AWS or on Azure or on Google Cloud, you are working in multi-tenant model. You or me, when we create virtual machines, you might end up creating on the same physical server, but you will not be aware of it, and even I will not be aware. Okay, so that's how the clouds work. Right. Okay, right. So now let me go back to infrastructure as a service. So now, when we basically speak about infrastructure as a service, what is basically what is expectation of the cloud consumers over? Okay, right. The cloud consumer is expecting, okay, infrastructure from you. Okay. Very, very simple. Infrastructure as a service is expecting an infrastructure for you. So I'll take the most popular example over here. Okay. So now let me go to MS Paint again. Okay. So our cloud symbol is not looking good. Let me use one more cloud icon. Okay. Yeah, I'll use this. Yeah. So let us assume that this is bad. I'll go with this image itself. Even though it doesn't look good, I think here we can basically scale this. Okay, right. So whenever I draw this, understand that I'm speaking about cloud provider. Okay, so now right in the cloud provider, okay, most popular infrastructure which we always come across is okay virtual machine. Okay. So let me go with the same image. On the cloud, I have this physical server. This physical server. And now consider this to be a cloud consumer. Okay. So from one of your workstation in your office, what you want is you need some compute. You need some power to compute. So what you do is you basically make a request to the cloud provider saying that, okay, I need compute power. So then basically what happens is, okay, what should I use? Okay, I'll use this one. Okay, so from this physical server or on this physical server, okay, a virtual server is created to you. A virtual server is created. Okay. On this physical server, a virtual server is created, and access to this virtual server is given back to this user. Am I clear on this? Okay. So first what? One user makes a request for compute. Generally, servers are used for computing, right? That's where I basically go. Okay. So 2 on physical server in data center or on physical server, a VM is created. A VM is created. And 3, access to this VM is given as per request. So user while creating the VM, he might basically ask for what are the credentials which you basically get. Okay. So while user is making a request, he makes a request about many things. He makes a request about what is the size of the machine which he wants, right? So right. So yeah, let me put it in this. Yeah. Specification. Okay. The specification which he might write is, okay, this might have machine size, possibly operating system. Which OS? which OS and machine size. Okay, CPU, RAM, and storage needs. Am I clear on this? Okay. So you are asking for infrastructure, but typically what you get is you get a virtual infrastructure. And where is that virtual infrastructure created? On a physical server. On a physical server. Right? Am I clear on this? Am I clear on this? Right? And after that, this cloud consumer is owner of this virtual server. This cloud consumer is owner of this virtual server, and whatever he has to pay, the metered billing starts. The metered billing starts. So for example, from the moment he creates his machine, his billing might start depending on what is an agreement between cloud consumer and cloud provider. Am I clear on this? Okay. So generally, in infrastructure as a service, we would look at infrastructural needs. Okay. So the infrastructure is generally, you can call them as raw IT requests. So you might be asking for a storage. You might be asking for a disk. You might be asking for a virtual machine. You might be asking for some network. So you're asking the raw IT services, right? So first, let me preserve this image. Right. Let me save this. Okay. Needs from the customers will be raw IT, right? Something like I need virtual machine, I need disk, I need network disk, I need some networking. Okay, so these are all the needs that basically are catered as infrastructure. Okay, right. And now here let me use that stuff which is okay. So once virtual infrastructure is created, the cloud consumer will be the owner of resource, and billing might start. Okay, this depends on what is the plan. This depends on payment mode. Am I clear on this? So whenever you are dealing with infrastructure as a service, okay, what we basically request for is, we request for typical raw IT services. They could be like, I want a server, right? So I'm calling it as a virtual machine. I want a disk, right? I want to add one more disk. So we have 10 servers, and for all the 10 servers, we want to share some a disk among between. So you might be asking for a networking disk, right? You might be asking for some IP related or networking related stuff. Okay, so these all fall under infrastructure as a service. Am I clear on this? If the physical server is have downtime, it might have downtime. See, let us not worry about the failure modes over here. So let us understand infrastructure as a service at this moment. So am I clear on infrastructure as a service? So when it fails, what happens, that we'll cover later. But first, please try to understand the core need of it. What is infrastructure as a service? Whenever cloud consumers are making raw IT requests. So what is the difference between disk and the network disk? So the disk is your hard disk, right? So your hard disk will be connected to a laptop at one time. Network disk means it might be connected to a multiple machines at one time. So that's the basic difference there. Am I clear on this so far? Yes. is one popular diagram. People use it a lot. Okay. I also will refer it. IAS versus PAS versus SAS. Right. No. Yeah. I'll rather use this. Open image in new tab. Okay. So I'm also putting this. Okay. Okay. Now if you look into on-site, or that means that this is your, if it is your office, you have to manage networking, you have to manage storage. Storage is disk storage, physical disk storage. You have to manage servers. You have to manage virtualization. Virtualization is hypervisors. You have to manage hypervisors. And on top of hypervisors, you might be creating OS, operating system. And on top of operating system, you might be basically installing some middleware, some applications and all that stuff. So if you see on time, you manage everything. But if you go to infrastructure, right? So let us assume that you made a request for a virtual machine, right? You are not responsible for physical networking. You are not responsible for physical storage. You are not responsible for servers. You are not responsible for virtualization. So just now I got a question saying that what will I do if the servers go wrong? That is not my problem. If the server goes wrong, that is provider's problem. Physical server if it goes wrong. But if the virtual server goes wrong, yes, it is my problem. Are you seeing this? Whatever is in blue color is the stuff which you manage. Whatever is in red color is the server, is the stuff which cloud provider manages. So that means which Amazon manages, which Microsoft manages. Am I clear on this, guys? Yeah. So if you look at infrastructure as a service, you need not worry about a physical networking anymore. You need not worry about storage, physical storage. When whatever is in this 4 layers, last bottom 3 are physical. Physical network, physical storage, and physical servers. Okay. And this is the virtualization. This is the VMware or whatever software, which hypervisor software which your cloud provider is using. You need not manage that. Okay. So in infrastructure, your ownership starts from operating system. So if you create a virtual machine, okay, you are owner of this virtual machine, and in this there will be some operating system. So updating that operating system, patching that operating system, all of that will become your responsibility. Am I clear on this? Okay. In manage, who manages, right? So understand one thing: on the server, on the physical server backups, you are not responsible. But for whatever is running in your virtual machine, if you want to take a backup of your data, then you are responsible for that. Okay. So you have to take VM backups. There is no need for you to take physical backups. So your ownership is in something which is in blue color, right? So yeah. So whatever is in blue, you have a virtual machine there. So backup of that virtual machine is your headache. But backup of a physical server, okay, what will happen if the network goes wrong? What will happen if the virtualization is not working correctly? That is a cloud provider's problem. Am I clear on this? So where is migration task coming in, Praneeth? Okay. So what is a hypervisor? Hypervisor helps you in creating virtual machines. If it is your organization, you have to create, you have to have your physical server, you have to have physical disk storage, you have to have physical network, and then you have to choose what is the hypervisor which I am going to use. Am I going to use VMware, or will I use some other kind of virtualization softwares or whatever it is? But if you go to the cloud, you are not worried about all of that. You start from virtual machine, right? What is happening underneath, you will not basically worry about. Okay. So yeah. How we choose the service is suitable for the cloud? AWS, Azure, etc. So how you choose your cars? All the cars can be driven on the road, right? But how are you choosing a particular car? There are many factors that go in, right? Yeah. Here the data is the data that your application generates. So for example, if you are running your, yesterday we were showing you that application example, right? So in that we had what you call search operations, availability search. So whenever we have to search that availability, there should be some data in our application. So that is your application data. Okay. Yeah. It necessarily might not be completely database. Am I clear on this, guys? Any doubts on infrastructure as a service? So what happens in infrastructure as a service? This cloud consumer is you typically. Okay. You make a request to cloud provider, and cloud provider will choose one physical server. On that physical server, he might create a virtual machine, and you will get an access to a virtual machine. You will never know what is happening on the physical server. That is generally what happens in AWS. Yes, not only AWS, any virtual machine on any cloud is generally infra as a service. Okay. Amazon Prime is SaaS. Yes, in Amazon Prime you are directly getting a software, right? You really don't do anything. Google Drive is also a SaaS because you are not managing anything. You directly get a software. Okay. Let us worry about software, SaaS and PaaS in tomorrow's class. Today I want it to be very clear on infrastructure as a service. Am I clear on that or not? Devashish have not defined what a region is. Okay. It might impact. It depends on who the provider is and how the provider is managed. Can you give one example? Consumer manage all the details except inst. See, for example, you have created one virtual machine on the cloud. Okay, and you are a consumer and provider is me. I will be giving you a virtual machine. After that, what you do with your virtual machine, I am not responsible for that. So let us assume that you are a consumer and I am a provider. You have asked me saying that I want a 4 GB or 4 CPU and 16 GB RAM machine, right? With Linux or Red Hat Linux. So I have given you that. After that, whether you add folders to that, whether you delete the folders to that, whether you remove the stuff from there, whether you corrupt your system, I am no longer worried about it. So I have given you what I have asked, and now your ownership lies from what you have got. So will you take the periodic backups? That is your responsibility. Will you patch your operating system or will you update your operating system? That is your responsibility because you are a cloud consumer, right? I will be ensuring that your virtual machine is running all the time. That is my responsibility. Pramod, am I clear on this? Yeah. Are there any predefined rules or percentages of work that we manage and the provider manages, right? So there is nothing called as predefined. The only thing which you have to do is you have to know your boundaries. You are knowing your boundaries. Okay. So whenever you are working on cloud, so which physical server to choose, you might not have an option because you might not even know about it. Yeah, that's how it works. Only hardware will be taken care by cloud provider. In the case of infrastructure as a service, yes. In the case of infrastructure as a service, yes. But we have two other models to worry about, right? One is platform as a service, the other one is software as a service. Okay, guys. So, did we all understood this? Any doubts on what is infrastructure as a service? Anything? Yes. Good. So, one more thing is parallelly, I am also adding very simple content on Linux. So, for example, yesterday I have added what is Linux shell and what is Linux terminal. If you know this, wonderful. If you don't know this, please watch this. Right? So, we have 3 simple videos on YouTube which speak about what is that we do on a Linux machine. Whenever we come across Linux, we always come across terms called as shell and terminal. So, what are shell and terminal and how to connect to a Linux shell from Windows machine. Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for your time. So that's what I had for the day, and we'll meet again tomorrow. Right? Thanks.
Thanks for watching. For more videos, subscribe our channel and click on bell icon.